There's something weird about these enemies in Spyro. Something is off. None of the enemies want to attack you at all. They just run away, trembling in fear, nearly about to piss their pants. Even the sheep don't want anything to do with you, and sheep are like super cool. So you almost feel bad for killing them. Almost. But this is just the first area, the tutorial, so of course nothing's gonna hurt you. Except for that, but surely there's no more non-aggressive enemies in the rest of the game, right?
Right?
Well, there's a few, and in this video, we're going to be examining every single one of them and looking at how they affect the vibe and experience of each level. And by the end of this video, we're going to see if you can beat this game without killing non-aggressive enemies, or if we can beat the game by only killing them. Let's begin. But before I hop into this big justice playthrough, I want to first identify all of these passive enemies throughout the game. Like those Gnorc goons we saw in the Artisans' homeworld, you can assert dominance over them simply by existing. It reminds me a lot of the effect that I have on children in real life. Anytime I'm forced to talk to a kid, they're always paralyzed in fear, just like these Gnorcs. I think it has to do with my unkempt demeanor, making me look like the stranger danger neighborhood watch shadowy figures on the poster. Perhaps that's what these Gnorcs are seeing when they see Spyro's intimidating face. But let's move on to some of my favorite enemies, the big fat armor guys from Dark Hollow. Now, the Spyro wiki calls these guys Gnorc sentries, but I think that title gives their intelligence a little bit too much credit. There's clearly nothing going on in their heads, which I personally find relatable. These Gnorcs are the definition of staying in your lane and thriving. If you get in their way, they don't want to hurt you, they don't want to damage you, they just bump you out of the way with their titanic tummies. And if they even get a sense that you're going to disrupt their nirvana-like state of constant being, they will roar at you with the most adorable little shake of their head that you've ever seen from a so-called enemy in a video game. If only we all could be so steadfast and disciplined as the Gnorc sentry, a truly majestic creature. But let's head back to the homeworld now and talk about the strongest enemy in the game. With more health than Nasty Gnorc, this enemy stands as a statue, a symbol of perseverance, with a gray moral undertone to him. I'm of course talking about the gem burglar. This enemy's very existence fleshes out the world and its lore in a unique way. Recall that Nasty Gnorc turned gems into warriors for his cause, which explains why every enemy in the game drops a single gem, but not the gem burglar. This crafty Gnorc seems to be almost self-aware, knowing that violence will only bring about his own demise. Conversely, he knows that gems can only bring him more life. For that reason, he continues to stockpile with gray morals, and it's no surprise that as Spyro approaches, he's only a little alarmed for his very existence. Now, at this point, I would like to make sure that you're braced and seated for what I'm about to tell you. Spyro is a terrorist. And I'm not just talking about all of these enemies on the ground so far. He even takes to the skies and enacts drone attacks on unsuspecting convoys of supply trains in all of the flight levels. Don't believe me? Open your eyes and take a look at what's happening here. This innocent Gnorc here is working a humble career path, driving this train in circles indefinitely. Not only that, but he carries dangerous TNT loads which are assumedly being taken to Gnorc Cove for further work and processing. This delicate supply chain is the backbone of the Gnorc economy. Why do you think they have flight levels in every homeworld? We need stability in the Dragon Realms. And these little train Gnorcs are the ones putting in the long, difficult, underpaid hours of trucking that gets your Amazon delivery to your door. So you're welcome, Spyro, for fucking breaking everything and ruining this fragile balance for what? Haha, because it's funny? All in one, we killed them all in one. Disgusting. Anyways, moving out of the homeworld, we have to talk to the balloonist, Marco. And is he an enemy? Like, if the other Gnorcs weren't enemies, then what's the balloonist? If he has requirements that you have to meet, is he really your friend? Kind of like how Hunter always asks for orbs, even though he's like trying to help you get orbs. Like, whose side are they on here? I'm gonna count them as non-aggressive enemies. And that brings up another interesting class of enemies, the fodder. Now, there's so many fodder in Spyro 1 that they deserve a video all unto themselves, which, if you want to see, leave a comment down below. But I think these enemies file into the same class as the Balloonists, as passive-aggressive enemies. They don't actually damage Spyro, but they have the potential to hurt you, emotionally. So let's move on into Peacekeepers and talk about some more non-aggressive enemies, like the egg thieves. You know, these guys have like a real shit-eating grin, and that little taunt that they have, it really makes you want to commit arson on them. But do they really deserve it? They don't attack you, and the only crime they've committed is stealing a dragon egg, which seems bad until you realize that you're the only child dragon in the entire game. Those eggs could be from Spyro 3 for all you know, so I don't think the violence against them is justified. I think that they at least need to be investigated for abduction. They're really a test, you know? It's like one of those annoying kids at school that's always in your face. It's like, if you just punch them, then you're the asshole, you know? So be the bigger man and don't kill the egg thieves. Unless, you know, you just need eggs to pay the balloonist. You know, he should probably be investigated as well, now that I think about it. Let's move on to Clifftown and talk about one of the most voluptuous women in gaming. The Gem Mamas. These voluptuous vixens are maternal martyrs, sacrificing their children with Dr. Shemp to send them flying off of a cliff in order to stop Spyro. But if you get past those defenses and get right up into the mama's booty cheeks, she'll just give you a little slap, you know? Just a little pow. And normally, I would say that that is quite an aggressive and violent thing to do, but this slap doesn't do damage, which speaks to maybe an underlayer of love and care that mamas naturally give to everything around them. It brings up an interesting ethical question. Is corporal punishment really a form of aggression, or is it a form of tough love meant to strengthen you for the future of your playthrough? Shoutouts to all the mamas out there. Keep making your gem soup. It probably tastes okay. Let's zoom back out to the home world and talk about the butt guys. Yeah, you heard me. The guys that show their flat, polygonal assholes to you. Good thing there's no mamas around, otherwise there might be some slapping to be done, you know what I'm saying? You know, when I went into this video, I had a lot of sympathy for the non-aggressive enemies. I was thinking, you know what, maybe they deserve more credit. But now that I've looked at some of these guys, they're just as much criminals as the rest of them. This guy with his indecent exposure should be taken right to jail, man. I mean, that is disgusting, especially the resolution of the single line that makes his butt crack. It's just like, honestly, it's a thing of beauty. I'm sorry, I just gotta be honest, it's actually beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I can't pretend to be outraged. I actually love these guys. They're awesome. You know, everybody's out there talking about free the nipple. I'm talking free the butthole, all right? These guys know. But you know, let's get serious for a sec. This is a very serious video. Let's move on to Alpine Ridge and talk about these big yellow fucking keks. Or as the Spyro wiki calls them, Maggie and the Ferocious Beasts. These beasts are weird because some of them attack you and some of them don't, and you just kind of gotta hang out in front of them to find out which is which. Some of them will smack you, some of them will body slam you, but others will just oddly yell over and over again as if to say, "Get this stranger away from me." And speaking of enemies that have multiple reaction states to Spyro, there's the famous green druids who are known for lifting platforms out of your way, and when you fuck up, they laugh at you like a little baby. But what they don't realize is that I can kill them from anywhere. I mean, being able to move platforms is a pretty cool power, but you know what's even cooler? Being alive. So with that said, let's move on to Beastmakers, where we encounter our first enemy that can actually damage Spyro, but does so unintentionally. I'm talking, of course, about the electric floor Gnorcs, or as the Spyro wiki calls them, electro-fuck-ass Gnorcs. These enemies, as the name would suggest, electrify your fucking ass if you get too close when it's active. However, these Gnorcs are electrifying the floor whether you're flying by them or flying away, so I don't know what the big fucking deal is, and personally I find them to be non-aggressive towards Spyro because they aren't actually trying to hurt him. So Electro Gnorcs, you get a pass, if fist. Now, I would say that this same logic applies to the boss of Beastmakers, Metalhead, but the thing about him is that even though he innocently just charges his own poles, you know what I'm saying? He also throws giant fucking monkeys at you, and I personally consider that a microaggression and not chill. So we're going to be moving on to the next homeworld, Dreamweavers, and unfortunately there's no non-aggressive enemies here, but there is one edge case in Haunted Towers. And I'm not talking about the fairies, alright? Yeah, get it? Edge case, you know what I'm saying? I'm talking about the metal armors, but only when they're in their unanimated form. You see, if you're able to kill the source of the armor's power before they awake, then they stay in a dormant position, meaning that they are completely pacifist and completely lifeless as well. Also worth mentioning is the Cannon Jester in the homeworld, who only shoots his own friends to make them big and small. I don't have a raunchy joke for that. I'm sure it's in there somewhere. But he doesn't attack Spyro critically, so he's cool. In fact, all of the timer jesters in this homeworld don't attack Spyro either. They just fucking run at like light speed. I think it's actually a bug how fast they dodge you, so don't feel bad if you suck. I'm just kidding. You should feel bad. So now we're on to Nasty's homeworld, and in Gnorc Cove, there's a bunch of these big fat enemies that hit Spyro with barrels. Super not chill, but a couple of these enemies just roll the barrels off the edge of the map onto the water. Like, I'm not really sure how they're contributing to society, but what I can say is that they are not being aggressive towards Spyro directly, and for that reason, they count as pacifist. Now, I'm not even going to talk about Twilight Harbor because pretty much every enemy in that level shoots you with Dorito bullet AK-47s, which kind of counts as violent and not chill at all. So in Nasty Gnorc, the final level, there's a couple of thieves that hold keys, which do run away from you. They don't attack you, and the same thing applies to the thieves in treetops, as well as the egg thieves throughout the game. Those guys are definitely homies, and they're pretty easy to kill as well once you learn. And then the final level of the game, Nasty's loot, contains a couple more of these thieves and some of the planes. Now, I didn't touch on these planes, but you see them in almost every flight level, and they are just as innocent as the train drivers, as just about as any other enemy on this entire list. The planes deserve justice. They deserve to have an investigation by the NTSB. They deserve to have so many more regulations than I think they have in the Dragon World, and I think it's a crying shame that Spyro's just allowed to go and just destroy them like that. I mean, imagine that in the real world. And by the way, same thing applies to the helicopter guys. We need regulation. So now it's time to answer the question on everyone's mind. Can you beat this game without killing these poor, non-aggressive enemies? Or can you beat the game by just killing them? Well, the answer to both of these questions is unfortunately no, due to the egg thieves and Nasty Gnorc respectively, who are both aggressive or non-aggressive and required to be killed, not considering enemies in flight levels as well. So it's a bit of a conundrum that really makes pacifist runs of this game essentially impossible unless you say, pacifist except for Nasty Gnorc, and except for this, and except for that, and it's kind of like, what's the point? So yeah, sorry. But I do want to thank you guys for watching this video to the end and entertaining my silly lore theories about this game. Normally when I'm playing on stream, I usually shut down lore-related questions like, why is Nasty Gnorc's titties so big? But in this case, it was fun to take a deeper dive, and if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to let me know down below. My name's Dayoman, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.